War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Translated by Alma and Louise Malle. Book 10. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Andy Yu. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Book 10, Chapter 4. Bald Hills. Prince Nicholas Bolkonsky's estate lay 40 miles east from Smolensk and 2 miles from the main road to Moscow. The same evening that the prince gave his instructions to Alpátych, Dessalles, having asked to see Princess Mary, told her that as the prince was not very well and was taking no steps to secure his safety, though from Prince Andrew's letter it was evident that to remain at Bald Hill might be dangerous, he respectfully advised her to send a letter by Alpátych to the provincial governor at Smolensk, asking him to let her know the state of affairs and the extent of the danger to which Bald Hills was exposed. Dessalles wrote this letter to the governor for Princess Mary. She signed it, and it was given to Alpátych with instructions to hand it to the governor and to come back as quickly as possible if there was danger. Having received all his orders, Alpátych, wearing a white beaver hat, a present from the prince, and carrying a stick as the prince did, went out accompanied by his family. 3 well-fed rooms stood ready harnessed to a small conveyance with a leather hood. The larger bell was muffled and the little bells on the harness stuffed with paper. The prince allowed no one at Bald Hills to drive with ringing bells, but on a long journey Alpátych liked to have them. His satellites, the senior clerk, a counting-house clerk, a scullery maid, a cook, 2 old women, a little page-boy, the coachman, and various domestic serfs were seeing him off. His daughter placed chintz-covered down cushions for him to sit on and behind his back. His old sister-in-law popped in a small bundle, and one of the coachmen helped him into the vehicle. "There, there! Women's fuss! Women!" said Alpátych, putting and squeaking rapidly just as the prince did, and he climbed into the trap. After giving the clerk orders about the work to be done, Alpátych, not trying to imitate the prince, now lifted the hat from his bald head and crossed himself 3 times. "If there's anything, come back, Yákov Alpátych! For Christ's sake, think of us!" cried his wife, referring to the rumors of war and the enemy. Women's fuss," muttered Alpátych himself, and started on his journey, looking round at the fields of yellow rye and the still green, thickly growing oats, and at other quite black fields just being ploughed a second time. As he went along he looked with pleasure at the year's splendid crop of corn, scrutinized the strips of rye-field which here and there were already being reaped, made his calculations as to the sowing and the harvest, and asked himself whether he had not gotten any of the prince's orders. Having baited the horses twice on the way, he arrived at the town towards evening on the 4th of August. Alpátych kept meeting and overtaking baggage trains and troops on the road. As he approached Smolensk, he heard the sounds of distant firing, but these did not impress him. What struck him most was the sight of a splendid field of oats in which a camp had been pitched, and which was being mown down by the soldiers, evidently for fodder. This fact impressed Alpátych, but in thinking about his own business he soon forgot it. All the interests of his life for more than 30 years had been bounded by the will of the prince, and he never went beyond that limit. Everything not connected with the execution of the prince's orders did not interest and did not even exist for Alpátych. On reaching Smolensk on the evening of the 4th of August, he put up in the Gatchina suburb across the Dnieper, at the inn kept by Ferapóntov, where he had been in the habit of putting up for the last 30 years. Some 30 years ago Ferapóntov, by Alpátych's advice, had bought a wood from the prince, had begun to trade, and now had a house, an inn, and a corn dealer's shop in that province. He was a stout, dark, red-faced peasant in the 40s, with thick lips, broad knob of a nose, similar knobs over his black frowning brows and around the belly. Wearing a waistcoat over his cotton shirt, Ferapóntov was standing before his shop, which opened onto the street. On seeing Alpátych, he went up to him. "You're welcome, Yákov Alpátych. Folks are leaving the town, but you have come to it," said he. "Why are they leaving the town?" asked Alpátych. "That's what I say. Folks are foolish, always afraid of the French." Women's fuss, said Alpátych. "Just what I think, Yákov Alpátych. What I say is, orders have been given not to let them in, so that must be right, and the peasants are asking 3 rubles for carting isn't Christian." Yákov Alpátych heard without hearing. He asked for a samovar and for hay for his horses, and when he had had his tea he went to bed. All night long troops were moving past the inn. Next morning Alpátych donned a jacket he wore only in town and went out on business. It was a sunny morning, and by 8 o'clock it was already hot. A good day for harvesting, thought Alpátych. From beyond the town firing had been heard since early morning. At 8 o'clock the booming of cannon was added to the sound of musketry. Many people were hurrying through the streets, and there were many soldiers, but cabs were still driving about, tradesmen stood at the shops, and service was being held in the churches as usual. Alpátych went to the shops, to government offices, to the post office, and to the governor's. In the offices and shops and the post office everyone was talking about the army and about the enemy who was already attacking the town. Everybody was asking what should be done, and all were trying to calm one another. In front of the governor's house Alpátych found a large number of people, Cossacks and a traveling carriage of the governor's. At the porch he met 2 of the landed gentry, one of whom he knew. This man, an ex-captain of police, was saying angrily, "It's no joke, you know. It's all very well if you are single. One man though undone is but one, as the proverb says, but with 15 in your family and all the property, they've brought us to utter ruin. What sort of governors are they to do that? They ought to be hanged, the brigands." "Oh, come, that's enough," said the other. "What do I care? Let him hear. We're not dogs," said the ex-captain of police, and looking around he noticed Alpátych. "Oh, Yákov Alpátych, what have you come for?" "To see the governor by his excellency's order," answered Alpátych, lifting his head and proudly thrusting his hand into the bosom of his coat, as he always did when he mentioned the prince. "He has ordered me to inquire into the position of affairs," he added. "Yes, go and find out," shouted the angry gentleman. "They've brought things to such a pass that there are no carts or anything. There it is again, you hear?" said he, pointing in the direction whence came the sounds of firing. "They've brought us all to ruin, the brigands," he repeated, and descended the porch steps. Alpátych swayed his head and went upstairs. In the waiting room were tradesmen, women, and officials, looking silently at one another. The door of the governor's room opened, and they all rose and moved forward. An official ran out, said some words to a merchant, called a stout official with a cross hanging on his neck to follow him, and vanished again, evidently wishing to avoid the inquiring looks and questions addressed to him. Alpátych moved forward, and next time the official came out addressed him, one hand placed in the breast of his buttoned coat, and handed him 2